Passport bros. Men want to be married just as much as women do. They also love their kids just as much as we do. And they also want to protect and provide as much as we want to grow and nurture. But being desirable is nature's unfair game. Not everyone's born looking a certain way or having a certain amount of means, and especially probably not even enough to constantly keep upgrading. A common mistake men tend to believe is that women are not visual creatures. That's absolutely wrong. But our procreating instinct is much stronger than our, visuals. So it becomes blinding. So as long as you have the means, the looks can be overlooked. But now let's put that on an equal playing field where the means are secured by women for women. Then there's nothing to be blind by anymore, and so a woman can pick and choose. So women will definitely go after the six-figure earners, as well as the men will also go for the hot models, even if they're way below six figures. It's cultural as it is economic. We're a very consuming society. We want it, we have it. So what happened was people tried to take that tactic into the marriage and dating world, and it doesn't work out. Marriage is just one of those institutions that don't really move with time. Rather, it's the people every time that have to adjust for it. But as humans, we tend to overvalue ourselves and our self-worth. And no matter what we are and how flawed and bad we look, we still want the best of the best. So in this case, the solution is usually tampering with the playground and going back to the old equilibrium and turning it back into the old equilibrium when it's not very equal. There's not a there's no equality in power in the marriage, which is the formula that has proven to work again and again. And they're doing that by going to places where the means will blind the looks. Who is a passport bro? These are men who understood that women in their countries are no longer fulfilling their roles or should be, or are either too liberated and beyond the point of no return, so they decide to change the geographical area to find a wife with traditional values and who is not looking forward to being more than a housewife and a mother, so he can assume the role of the dominant in the relationship and the provider. Why did this happen? Why did this passport bro phenomenon came about? Back in the day, a man was the sustenance of the house. He was the sustainer. He was the blood that kept the family alive. He worked and he brought ingredients and it became meals. He planted a seed and it became a child, and he gave a word in an order and it became law. Men aren't having equal submission anymore because, well, you can't be submissive to someone you're equal to. It doesn't work like that. So giving up on trying to find a proper mate in their culture, they decided to go to a different culture where things happen a little differently the way they want it to happen. In a place where men like them are also sought after, where they can pick and choose the best. Exception to the rule, bros. It can happen planned or unplanned. Not everyone or anyone that gets married to a foreigner is a passport bro. Sometimes you can just travel just for the sake of traveling and you wind up falling in love, or vice versa. That person comes to your country and you end up marrying. Now, what makes you a passport bro is the awareness of the culture being, and you packing your bags and claiming that I'm a passport bro, and this is what I'm going to do. And some just travel and it happens. It's really all about the intention. Now let's talk about the ones that ruined it. The fact is, people, I would say more men than women, but yeah, people have always traveled for booty. Us in the third world, we always knew this. We see it in our neighborhoods, in our surroundings. We always know someone married to a foreigner, and we always see a foreigner around someone's daughter. But it's not always a happy ending, though. And the fact that the law is nicer to them and they have more means to defend themselves legally meant that we had to be careful around these people and also limit their access to our girls. And we also know their values around casual sex, and they don't really align with ours. So segregate and don't let them be around kids for too long. These men either travel in groups or solo to avoid being shamed. The common thing about these men who travel for beauty is that they're always traveling to the same places. So you'd find a guy who's always traveling twice, three times a year and always going to the same destination, the same place. Where you ask them about sightseeing or the culture of the place, they don't really know. They know the name of one hotel. And they also tend to travel because they always tend to travel where, the sex is guaranteed. The second type is pedos. And yes, trust me, pedos. I've seen this play out in a village one time actually. The villages are targeted because the people there are much nicer and they're more welcoming. The city people are harsher. It's just what it is, more careful. They know how the game is. But with villagers, they're so kind and so warm. So they're very welcoming and they would welcome you to their house and feed you and host you, the drill. And so the men don't really have their eyes on the girls, rather they have their eyes on the little boys. So yes, they're pedos and gay. And alongside poverty, the money is really an incentive for these kids to go along with these men. They just think it's kindness and a show of love, but they're just being groomed. So is it evil, this whole passport bro culture? A lot of men marry abroad and are happy in their relationships and nobody knows about them. But in the culture of passport bro, the announcement happens. Oh boys, I'm packing. Oh boys, I found a girl. Oh boys, this is the place where they are. Oh boys, now we're getting everything is out in the open, and just announcement after announcement after they're very loud about it, which is kind of similar to an occult. It is an occult. So once they find someone and they see how the treatment is different and how the woman is different, they start to shit on women in their country. And so there's a lot of toxicity that goes into that, be it gaslighting of the women or comparing them to each other or putting them against. And that's why the women hate it. We don't like being compared to one another. Each one is special in their own way. But the thing that these men don't forget is that they were never wanted to begin with. Now having a woman doesn't really make you wanted and sought after. So these men are created in their own subcategory of men. The men who were never wanted but cheated the system until they got what they don't deserve. Kind of like, this is not my opinion, I'm just saying. But it's how it's played out in hindsight, which is pretty stigmatizing in the end of itself, being the one that nobody in your, if you live in a different country, then nobody really knows, so nobody really cares. You never really put into that category. Instead, you're put on a pedestal. But if you take that person back to your country, it just shows a level of desperation and undesirability. Don't go back to the society that labeled you as undesirable. The culture of customization and borderlessness of how we live and getting what you want, how you want it, is the driving force behind most of this. I only like Asian looking people and I can have that. He only likes European looking people, so he can have that. She only likes Middle Eastern looking people, so she can have that as well, along with the lifestyle. Nothing is hard anymore and everything is served to us on a silver platter. Because the man or the other party is also looking for the same thing. He's looking for my characteristics, I'm looking for his character, and everyone's happy. So why the anger? Truth of the matter, tribalism tends to take over when it comes to these things. It doesn't matter how much we evolve, we're always tribes in the end. Black people don't want their race to be erased. Blonde people don't want their kind to be erased. So the ethnicities and the races try to stick together and to breed within themselves and to be as stronger as possible and not to get erased, but all these mixed marriages just mixing everything up. And we find that in Morocco, the men also have this mentality of going abroad and finding women. Like, they also internationally marry. And their preference most of the time is Ukrainian looking women. And so when they do marry these women, and so you'll find all these men talking about how good it is and how good these women treat them and how good they look and, all these details nobody really asked about. And on the opposite front, he talks about how the women in his countries have, broken so many rules and they're so materialistic and this and that. However, you find that those girls that he went to marry have done things that are worse, but the difference is the things that are worse for us in that culture are not considered bad, so she was not really breaking any rules. This kind of makes you wonder, what do these men want? And then they start talking shit about the women here, another this, another that. And so you look a certain way, and then you have a man of your own kind telling you how you don't have blue eyes or you don't have blonde hair, and how your skin is so dark, and because of that, you're not desirable. And that's why he chose the person he chose. And so subconsciously, they're putting you against each other, and they're putting you in a comparison that you can't win because, well, you're not from the same ethnic group as that other person. But no hate. At the same time, you still have the chance to pick the one you want, which looks nothing like him. Why does it sound personal? I really don't care. So are they victims or predators, both the girls and the boys? The passport bros. A lot of people would look at the dynamic of a man coming from a much stronger economy and the poor girl as a Cinderella dynamic type of story. She is being saved. But others would say that she's a victim and that she's being groomed because they usually go for them young. But at the same time, in her country, the men would say that he's the one that being a victim because, well, she grew up in a tough, harsh environment. She's strong and she's probably street smart as well, can, survive out there in the wilderness, but he can't, so she brainwashed him or manipulated him into liking her. And so you really can't win in this. But unless she was like sold to him or something, how predatory is it? You have two consenting people who like each other and want to live together for the rest of their lives. Why are you triggered? And so in many cases, these women are actually upgrading their lifestyle. It doesn't have to be take me to whatever country you're from. You can just live in her country and trust me, you're going to live much better because of the poor economy and the US currency he's making. And so the man is still stuck in a 9 to 5, but living a better life. He's happier in his house, being respected in this house, and she gets to upgrade her lifestyle. So yes, all these situations are probable. Who are we to judge? But of course he can always fall for a gold digger who will suck him dry. Or he can leave. And so for example, like the Philippines, which is a huge destination for this, the divorce is illegal. Do you guys know that? I didn't know. Let me know if you guys know any better, because when I did my research, it's actually illegal. Unless you're like of a small ethnic group that has like different laws, it's really, you can't get divorced. And so yeah, that is predatory. If that's the intention you went to that country with. But yeah, when she's a gold digger and he's a manipulator, then of course the relationship is uneasy and they have to sleep with one eye open. So some of the biggest destinations for passport bros are Asia and Latin America, and surely but slowly Africa as well. And let's not forget Eastern Europe. Women do it too. If you're not watching TLC, you're missing out. Not that I watch them. Of course in TLC they get married, but let's talk about real life. It's much, much darker and messier. A lot of messy business happens under the guise of tourism. And when the country's GDP starts to benefit from it, well, they usually tend to sugarcoat it and give it other names, the country. So it becomes something that's not very severely punished. There are rules and regulations that are not as harsh when these people do these things. And it's not just women, a lot of times also men, and we find that a lot in places, well, Africa, let's just say Africa. A lot of white women travel to these countries, so they, men. So it's very clear that in these cases that there is a big imbalance of power, but at the same time, everyone's getting what they want. However, there's always a difference between horny women and men who just want to settle down, have their kids, and a family. So So yes, this is where I wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Make sure to give me recommendations. See ya.